Uncut and uncensored. Recently, I did a on-camera video during lunch talking about a possible comic continuation. Now, in that video, I did mention that I did an audio, and that is this audio. Actually, it's a remake of the original audio. But as I said in the video, and I will say here, there has been speculation or talk of what the finale, and I don't want to give much away, of what the finale will be about, what the setting is, and basically, if any rumors and speculation are true, then how could one handle the possible situations? Basically, the rumors and speculation is that not only will the finale be like an epilogue, but there's a possible scenario and setting of time skip. In other words, the epilogue, according to speculation and rumor, could take place years after the original series or the original run, or basically after Twilight's coronation. Now, if any of this is true, if any of it's true, the question people have to ask is what happens in between the so-called possible time skip, if it is indeed true. What happens? You know, what occurs? Where do the characters go from that moment after the coronation and Celestia and Luna leave? You know, what are the positions in life besides being co-rulers, ambassadors, you know, whatnot for Equestria? You know, where do they go from here? Or where do they go from there? You know, a lot of questions. And one individual at the MLP Forums actually brought up a very good possibility of how to answer that very question. He brought up the possibility of doing a comic continuation, mostly IDW, where one of the people behind the series has confirmed that the series itself will continue despite the animated portion coming to an end. It was confirmed as of right now, unless things change, that the comic book by IDW will continue running. Now, like I said, the individual that made this suggestion / topic at the MLP Forums had come out and basically addressed the reason why. That reason being that the comic itself, even as a spin-off, a miniseries, could help address a lot of the issues that don't get resolved because of the rumored and speculated time skip, if that is indeed true. Now, the question is, could a comic continuation work for a series that already ended, but mostly work in a way that's an epilogue extension? In other words, it expands on the epilogue. It expands on the after situation, between years, if you will, situation. Could it work? I believe, honestly, if done right, that yes, it could work. I believe it can work. And here's why. Here's why. One thing, this individual said was that when the animated portion of Friendship is Magic does end, that will put less restraints on the comic book adaptation. In other words, the comic book staff will have a little bit more free will to do a little bit more with what they have, instead of being restricted and kind of requested and suggested, if not asked, to stay within the confines of the animated continuity. So, again, I do believe a comic continuation, or at least epilogue continuation, an extension, if you will, of the finale, of basically explaining the events and, the events of what happened afterwards, after the finale, after the coronation, whatever, if a time skip is involved. Basically, I think it's a great way to go because you have the opportunity to address what happens to the rest of the main 8. What happens with Starlight and Sunburst, and what happens with Spike and Rarity, what happens with Fluttershy, Discord, what happens with Applejack, Rainbow Dash. What happens with Celestia and Luna after retirement? What happens to the Pillars? What happens to the Student 6? Where do they all go from after that moment? What role would Tempest Shadow play? What role would Capper play? What role would the Sea Ponies / Hippogriffs play? What about the Dragons? What about Ember? What about Thorax? What role would all these characters play in basically this situation should a time skip be involved? It's like, what about the villains? What role would Cozy Glow, Chrysalis, Tyrek, what role, what aftermath, what fate, what future awaits them? What happens with them afterwards? A comic extension of the series, an extension of the epilogue, the last episode, if the last episode is an epilogue, is a great idea. Because you can expand on things in a comic book, especially if it's an official comic book, that you couldn't expand on before. And like I said, the one thing that this person points out, is that basically the staff at IDW, behind the IDW Friendship is Magic comic, would have a little bit more leeway to be able to do stuff, to be able to add more intrigue, more interest into the scenario while telling these stories and events that take place after the coronation and before the possible time skip, if that is the setting and scenario of the final episode. Again, everything could be done correctly and be made intriguing and interesting for people that read the comic on a daily basis or monthly basis, as well as watch the show, or even for those that just watch the show, took a peek at the comic here and there, and have decided, hey, they're doing this continuation of what happened afterwards. I want to check that out. And there you go. It would be something that would get the people that only view the show interested in finally taking a look and maybe subscribing for a short time to a monthly subscription to the comic just to see this, extension of this extension that takes place after the series. Like, people want to know, what about the CMCs? What's their future hold? The Cutie Mark Crusaders. Stuff like that. The Griffins. What goes on with them? All these questions that fans possibly, not saying will, but possibly, if the speculation is true, if the rumor is true about the setting and the scenario, basically these are questions they would want answered. And on top of that, they could also use it to answer questions that probably won't get answered here in the series before it ends. You could answer questions finally about this character or that relationship or this relationship, this romance, this ship, that ship. You get the idea. This character trying to discover their roots or trying to close this chapter of their lives or trying to bring closure to this or that. An extension, after the series would be great. 8, to even touch upon those. However, we have to realize this. Even if a lot of us think IDW would be the perfect comic book publisher to do this, because they've done not just the main Friendship is Magic comic, but several spin-offs, miniseries wise that is, we have to realize that we can also depend on ourselves. Because if there's one thing that Jim Miller said one time in his thank you letter, was that basically we the fans can help continue the series like we've been doing already, with our own animations, our own film fictions, aka fan fictions. Film fiction being Friendship is Magic fiction, if you know what I mean, fan fiction of Friendship is Magic. You know, our own animation, our own fan fiction / film fiction. You know, our own audio dramas, web comics, you name it. And that's where we could be playing a part in, especially if we want to do an extension where we want to know what happens afterwards, where we want to get answers to questions we may not get before the series is officially over. A good example of this, guys, once again, is Disney Fanatic 2346. Disney Fanatic 2346 did Bride and Daughter of Discord, and she went off the fact that she wasn't sure if there was going to be any more seasons, so she just went and wrote her own story. One of the things that she did that really surprised folks was she shipped romantically Spike and Applejack. Nobody knew about a Spike Applejack shipping, was possible or could happen until Disney Fanatic basically did it. And the way she did it is she made Applejack realize how much Spike means to her. And it's all based off Spike repaying Applejack for saving his life from the Timberwolves by doing the same for her in the episode Spike at Your Service. So Disney Fanatic built upon that, not knowing that there was going to be many more seasons to come. So if someone like Disney Fanatic can do something like that and make it a subpart or a minor, or how do I put it, a semi-major part of this Fluttershy Discord Beauty and the Beast inspired story, as well as its sequel, Daughter of Discord, which is a Lion King 2 Simba's Pride inspired story, that's saying something. Especially when you look at the fact that she has a prequel set to debut soon on YouTube that she premiered somewhat at BronyCon that focuses on Spike and Applejack. And again, this was all done and based off what she assumed would be the only other season 3, and partial season 4. She wasn't sure, again, that there was going to be more seasons. So she went with Applejack and Spike. And again, that's just evidence of what Jim Miller talked about, that we the fans can help continue the legacy of Friendship is Magic. We can do so. And if we, the fans, are the ones that have to do a continuation, should there be a speculated time skip or rumored time skip, for the last episode, and if the last episode is rumored to be like an epilogue, we don't know that for sure, then, who's to say we can't really, give the show a full closure and a full closure to a lot of things we want answered. Who's to say we can't do that? I'm just saying, folks, if IDW won't step up or doesn't step up, who's to say Disney Fanatic can't do it? Who's to say the people behind those CGI, very good CGI animations can't do it? Who's to say those that get those vector animations of the actual show and character designs can't do it? Who's to say that can't happen? Again, a good example, in my opinion, from what I have seen, is what Season, which is SEA3, numeral 3, SEA3, SON animated. This is a group of people that for years, if not a decade plus, has been working their butts off through webcomic, fiction, scripts, whatever, to get the long lost season 3 that Ben Hurst, before he passed away, God rest his soul, who was the head writer of the season, if not the series, Sonic the Hedgehog on ABC between 93 and 95, had originally planned to make happen. And already they have work in progress animax, if you will, showcased on the YouTube channel. They have people brought in to do the voices identical to the established voices. And if they could do something like that, who's to say the fans of MLP FIM can't do the same aim as well? Especially if those out there want to see a continuation, an extension of the so-called epilogue-less episode and the so-called rumored and speculated time skip that might be the setting, to see what happens in between, let's say, the coronation and the present, which is the future, if any of that happens. Who's to say fans wouldn't want to see that? Or fans wouldn't want to answer that question themselves if IDW doesn't step up? The point is, guys, the opportunity is there for either IDW, through fan suggestion and demand, to step up and say, we're going to do a spin-off that is a continuation, that's an extension of the final episode, and it's going to answer the questions you have been wanting to have answered in continuity with that series. Or, if they don't, then will we, the fans, be the ones that step up? That's a question that needs to be answered. If IDW doesn't step up through fan demand, then will the fans themselves step up and make a continuation, comic book wise, web comic, audio drama, SFM animation, actual 2D flash animation? Will we make it a reality? But again, could a comic book, as I say this in closing, could a comic book continuation, if not extension, work? Like I said earlier, I believe it can. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below. Comment if you like. I'd love to hear what each and every one of you have to say. And I'm out.